Hello and welcome to the first episode of the Gooners Podcast, Season 10. Jared, it's been a long time since we've done one of these. How are you, my friend?
Doing good. It's been a really long time. I couldn't even figure out how to get in here and get this thing going.
No, Mike has basically deserted us. He is now looking at real estate in the Middle East. So he's taken all of the funds that we've made from this podcast, embezzled them into pyramid schemes, and has made so much money. He's now just a real estate mogul. Quick congratulations to Owen, who couldn't join us today because he just had a baby. So wishing him, his wife, and little baby Jake nothing but health and happiness.
Absolutely. Really, really happy for them. And he's catching up to hers. He's working on it. So hers is going to have to get back in the lab.
Mikey hers is sick as a dog. So assuming because he's Mexican, is it a Chihuahua? Is that the name of the dog?
Yeah.
So he's not that sick. He's just like tiny sick, right?
A little sick. Yeah.
Yeah. How have you been, dude? We actually got to meet in person for the first time ever, a few months ago?
Yeah, that would have been, I guess, all the way back in February. We haven't podcasted in so long, but yeah, on my way back from California, you sent out the invite, so got to meet up, grab a coffee, hang out for a bit, which was awesome for me. Broke up the trip, made it way more palatable to drive California to Illinois. But yeah, really cool to meet for the first time since we've known each other for years now in the virtual space.
Yeah. Mike has very specifically put into each one of our contracts that we cannot meet each other unless he's there. But Jared and I said, fuck that. We're doing it. And that's why we got together.
And that's why he's not here today.
Right. So let's jump into Arsenal. Not much has happened since we last podcast. But holy summer. I mean, let's not dive back into stuff that's old. But I mean, if you were going to grade before the Eze deal, if you were going to grade our summer signings, what would you give our letter grade?
Even before the Eze signing, I would have said it's a solid B+. I mean, the last two seasons, we've had such a glaring need for a dedicated number 9 that had to be the priority. So to bring in not just a number 9, but one that's bagged, 50 goals the last couple of years. Yeah, it's hard to say that that's not a massive win because it's just the area we've needed help like that for so long. So it was top priority. It got done. So it's hard to give a poor grade when that's the case.
I would probably say a B+ too. And for me, even heading into the last 10 days of the window, I kept thinking to myself, we need that one more attacking player. You know how much I love England players. I said it in Tom Canton's little WhatsApp group, Declan Rice, Madueke, and Eze for me are three of my favorite players. And I know Madueke was not met with the most fanfare from our club and our supporters, but I absolutely love the signing. I think he is an amazing opportunity and depth piece to the squad. But the Eze signing, when he was first rumored with us in the beginning of the summer, I was over the moon thrilled. And then as the summer wore on, they're just how is this going to happen? Financially, space in the squad. And then waking up a couple days ago to the news that he had agreed in principle a deal with Spurs, I was just that sucks, right? We're losing a schoolgrown or schoolboy kid. And then all of a sudden, Jared, I don't know about you, but the last 2 evenings, I've just literally laid in bed watching YouTube videos that people have made compilations of Spurs fans just losing their shit, and it's been amazing.
Yeah, I've been a split between watching a lot of Eze comps. I probably watched every goal he scored over the past 5 years between all those, but it's been a healthy split between that and Spurs fans, just an absolute meltdown. And I'm sure you've seen it. We've got so many accounts in the social media space on Twitter that were, Monday of this week, Spurs fans talking about how incredible Eze is. He's the player for the team. He's going to transform the team. He's an amazing player. To those same accounts just a few days later saying we didn't really want him anyway. A little great.
Yeah, I will say that the few accounts that were all in on how he chose Spurs over Arsenal, and all that stuff, the couple that I went back and watched their follow-up videos, I do appreciate the way they're like, we owned it. But I think it's worse that it's us, right?
Sure. 100 times worse. Because
100 times worse. But I think the sentiment would remain the same if it was like a Chelsea or a Man United that came in at the last hour and swooped up the deal, because they sat for 17 days, I think I heard one of the Spurs supporters say, where they could have gotten the deal over the line. And then all of a sudden, it makes it worse that the reason the deal didn't get over the line was because Palace wanted to have him for their European match, which makes a ton of sense. And then he ended up not playing for him, which, again, on two fronts, for me, it didn't make sense he played in case he got hurt, right? Not only for his progression to move to Arsenal, but for Palace, if he gets hurt, they lose out on that money to reinvest. But they're in a catch-22 because they want to win the European leg, because then they're in a European competition, which helps them acquire better talent. So it's like, but it made no sense for him to play.
No, it made no sense for him to play. And, you know, more may come out on this as time goes on, but the timing of it really makes you think that there was some contact with Arsenal's reps, his reps, and said, hey, we're still interested. It may be a sort of end of the window thing. And if you're Eze, it's not like Spurs are going to walk away from you. He's far too good of a player for them to say no to. If we got to the end of the window, we could do nothing, and that was his only option. He could still take it, and Palace knows that money's guaranteed for them. And it just allowed him to sort of hang out and wait to see what develops. And as we saw yesterday, once it started, it developed really quickly. We heard about the Havertz, which it's interesting to see how connected those two things are, because it still seems a little unknown how serious the Havertz injury is. But when news of that dropped, within an hour, I saw, Arsenal may be interested in going back in for Eze. And then 1 more hour, and it was, here we go. It was a done deal. So it came together really quickly, which makes me think a lot of that was in place prior to the Havertz injury. But we don't really know. So, Havertz may be the hero. If he goes down and then ends up not being a super serious injury, the initial reports are it wasn't an ACL or anything like that. It could just be, weeks. If he's back in 3 weeks and we bring in Eze, he's going to be looked at as sort of the online cult hero for facilitating that deal, I think.
Oh, 100%. It was interesting. I don't know if you listened to Arteta's press conference this morning, but he made the comment, it's either we hear about how bad it is or we don't know what it is. And it seemed like it was a weeks, not months. And then this morning on Twitter, so take it for what it's worth, it was, hey, he probably needs a clean out within his knee. So that's a scope. So I've had a numerous amount of those, and that's a 4 to 6 week for a fat old guy. And so you're assuming for him, he's probably light training in a few weeks. Mm-hmm. And then Charles Watts said that the reports out of Germany were that it was not as serious at all than what we expected. So I kind of wonder, if it's part of, okay, he's hurt, we need coverage. Obviously, we identified Eze in the beginning of the summer as a person that we were interested in, and communication had been had between the clubs and the camp for the player. And then I do wonder how much of it was, oh shit, the reality he's going to go to Tottenham is a lot closer. We need to snap this up. As we record this, Sky Sports announced that he is at Arsenal right now having his medical and probably doing the fanfare. Maybe not going to be registered in time for our match tomorrow.
Yeah, I believe that's confirmed. He will not be a part of the game against Leeds. But yeah, he's there on site doing everything today.
Bring dude out right before kickoff, and that the Emirates is going to erupt. So back to my previous question, we graded it a B+. Now adding him, is it still a B+, or are we in A- territory?
For me, it's an A. I feel like as these things go on, if you ask most Arsenal fans, beginning of the window, and we laid out all the players we brought in, they would all say, "Oh, that's an A+, without a doubt. That's every player we could ask for." But as time goes on, no matter what you do, everybody wants more. Everybody always thinks they're one player short of reaching all their hopes and dreams, which in some cases is true, but very often not. But no matter what we do, there's going to be someone who says, "We need one more player. We need one more player." Prior to the Eze signing, I saw a tweet that said, if Arsenal had any ambition, they would go out today and sign Isak and Rodrigo. And this is after and it's like you can't be a serious person and think that's the definition of ambition, because it's just unrealistic that we would spend $500 million US in one summer. That's obvious to everyone. That's not going to happen. But you have so many of the Arsenal, influencers out there just spouting this stuff off, and it's so nonsensical and unrealistic that it puts in people's head an expectation that should never even be there. If you said at the beginning of summer, we're going to get Zubamendi, we're going to get Victor Gyökeres, we're going to sign Eze, and then in addition to that, we're going to add Madueke, Kepa, Norgard, people would be over the moon with that, as they should be. That's a lot of top quality talent and very, very good players to bring into a squad in one summer. But as we go on, I'm sure if we suffer one injury this weekend, there'll be talk of, well, why didn't we add X player in X position in addition to what we've done? So you can never overcome that. But for me with Eze, it has to be an A. The only thing I think that's kind of nitpicky, if you want to push it to an A plus, would be, which we may still do, is take care of some of those outgoings. Because we saw the last game, we had, I believe it was 7 senior players not in the squad. So if we sort some of those out, then Nelson, Lakanga, Vieira, some of that, and just move those guys on, I think that tips it over to, I would say, an A plus. And I say that because, in the last 2 decades, tell me when we've had a better summer than that. It'd be hard to find one. That's massive amounts of work they've done in just a few months. That's hard to compare to anything we've seen in the recent past anyway.
I completely agree. I'm looking right now. I was out. Sorry. You're like talking to 2 people that allergies are just killing them right now.
It's so bad.
I was looking up. So I obviously got to attend the Arsenal-Southampton away match, which was amazing for me to take my 8-year-old to go and finally see the Arsenal play. Quick story. We were walking down for him to go to the toilet, and one of the stewards was like, go down this hallway. There'll be some toilets there. And it was literally like where the wheelchair access point was to get down pitch side. So he kind of like runs ahead and literally is standing on the boards, Saka, Calafiori, like feet away from him warming up. And I didn't know that he could be there, so I kind of ran after him saying, like, you need to come back. And this woman goes, hey, he can be here until anyone in these wheelchair spots shows up, and then he's got to move. Awesome. So he got to sit and watch the entire warm-up. And he kind of looked back at me at one point because I stood behind him, so I wasn't blocking the view of anyone. He just gave me that, like, holy shit, like my heroes are like here in front of me. And I'm like, that was an amazing moment. But if we go back to that match is a bad one because I was just going to pull up like the substitutes list. And we obviously in that match allowed Kearney to play, Zinchenko to start. But when you look at like our substitute depth, we had match prior was against Newcastle, 1-0 win, Jorginho, Sterling, Henry Francis. And so like when you looked at our depth on bench, it was just a lot of youth signings, and not saying that they're not good enough, right? They're not good enough to help us win a title. So when you look at the summer, I put it into perspective of like, what's the depth look like? I agree with you. I grade it the same. I think it's unrealistic that we are going to get Isak. I think it's unrealistic we'd get Rodrigo. I personally don't think Rodrigo is all that much of a better upgrade than Martinelli and Trossard. If he was, he would be having other teams knock on Real Madrid's door. He would be fighting for a position at Real Madrid. Let's not forget we fucking like absolutely crushed Real Madrid twice, played him off the pitch both games. I just don't see paying $100 million for a player of his caliber when we could probably spend 35 to 60 million on someone else that maybe brings something better or to the squad. And we did that with Madueke. He can rotate to the right and left, and he can be that dynamic. But Eze he plays left attacking mid for Palace, and I think he is better than Rodrigo. So I don't understand why people are now banging on that door again.
Yeah, I don't have any question in my mind. If you said same price, you could have either one put into this team today, would you want Rodrigo or Eze? I would take Eze. I think he's more durable. He's a little more athletic. He's got the Premier League experience. and he's just been more in regular rotation. We've seen even in these summer matches, Rodrigo has not been in the Real Madrid plans at all. That may change if they can't sell him for the price they're asking. They're going to have to try and reintegrate him. And, which is fine. He's not a bad player, but is he £100 million player? In no world for me is he even near that. No. For that price, especially if you're Arsenal. Now, if you're City, Newcastle, one of these teams that has all the money in the world, you can roll the dice on some of those. Manchester United paid crazy amount for Antony. He's gone, and you never even hear about it anymore. Arsenal doesn't have that luxury to spend $100 million on a player they can't keep and have as a main featured player in the team, which is why you only see a splash that on a Declan Rice, for example, who's as much of a what you're getting player as you could possibly have signed. You've seen him in the Prem for years. You know what he's about. You've seen him played for England internationally. You know what you're getting when you sign Declan Rice. I feel like Rodrigo coming over from La Liga, there's just questions there. Not that he couldn't succeed, but it's far from a guarantee. And we're just not that team to roll the dice on 90 plus million. It just doesn't make any sense. And it's not surprising to me that Arsenal didn't do it.
No, I'm not surprised either. If you were, before we jump into Leeds, if you were to look at the window, we have 10 days left. Obviously, we know 3 or 4 players that should probably exit the club, whether it's a full-time transfer or a loan. If you were, is there anywhere in the depth of the squad that you would say, hey, we should maybe add one more player? Or do you think hey, we can't keep just adding, right?
Yeah, at some point with the squad size, you almost get to the point where it's hard to find a player that would add something to the group you have that's going to want to come play for you in a capacity that's very, very little. Mm-hmm. Our back line is so solidified. Our attack is so solidified. I mean, our reserve starting attack would, what are we looking at? We're talking about Martinelli, Havertz, Madueke across the front 3 as the second choices. There's no way we're signing somebody better than anyone in that group who's going to want to come in and play behind all of those guys. And that's the second tier squad right now. Same in the midfield. We've got such good depth that, if Odegaard happens to be out, obviously Eze is going to slide in and play the 10. And if both of them are out, Nwaneri is going to take that spot. Similar on the right, you got Saka, Madueke, Nwaneri again. There's not many areas where we're lacking, even in the 6 now. Zubimendi, Norgard may be the backup. It may be a case that you'd see Rice pull back there and maybe Eze play on the left side at 8. We've just got so many versatile players that we have plenty of options. And in a total Arsenal move, I think if we did add anybody the rest of the window, it would probably be a surplus defender, because we like to make sure we're not short in defense. And, we saw last year, no matter how good you think you are in an area, those cluster injuries can hurt anybody. So if it was going to be anything additional, I think that's what we'd see as sort of a utility defender. But it's not something I expect at this point unless we move out 3, 4, 5 guys between now and the end of the window.
The one attacking player for me that could be the surprise exit would be Martinelli. Mm-hmm. I think that would drive a 50+ million price tag. And even at that point, I don't know that we have to dip into the market to replace him, because we have Trossard. The reason for him getting a price pump is to show him, because I think he signed a new contract last season. It's just hey, we want you here, we need you here. And even Arteta said today, he's an important part to the squad. And when you go away to, or you play at home to probably not, I'll use Leeds as an example, or a Burnley. Leeds is a bad example because it's early season, but when you have Burnley come visit the Emirates, you can give Saka a rest. You can give whoever's starting the most on the left a rest, and you've got these depth where you look at the lineup and you go, yeah, that's great, and then those players are now on the bench. So we'll go to Leeds, won the championship last year, tied Burnley for 100 points, so they won on goal difference. Made a couple decent signings this summer. What are your thoughts? I mean, we've got early doors, right? But they drew their first match. I mean, how do you see this?
I think they won. last week. I believe they were home at Ellen Road.
Oh, sorry, they
got
win.
a late penalty.
Yeah, my fault. Yeah, sorry, 1-0. Yeah, they did win.
And looking at that game, I didn't watch it live. I've only seen the highlights. They outshot Everton pretty substantially. They had more of the ball, but you see this regularly that newly promoted sides, especially when they get a home game in match week 1, everybody's amped up. The crowd's going crazy to be back in the Premier League, to see your squad at home match week 1. You typically see some good performances, oftentimes over the team's level. I mean, Sunderland last week, first time back in the Prem for them in a long time. And you saw them just absolutely destroy. With West Ham, they beat 3-0. Mm-hmm. But you get all the momentum in the home crowd, especially in week 1. It can have a big impact. Leeds had a good performance, eked out a 1-0 win over a mediocre Everton side at home. And that's with that kind of match week 1 bump that I think a lot of teams get at home. So they're not one that's really, they shouldn't be a threat to Arsenal with our current squad, especially our home opener. I would expect us to go out there and beat them pretty handily. It's one that going into that game, we should see a 2-0, 3-0 Arsenal win.
I would assume the same. I agree with you. I think they are going to probably sit 10 men behind the ball, maybe even 11. I was looking up some notes before the pod, and historically, they have lost the last 6 times they've played us. So I'm guessing it's going to be a comfortable Arsenal 2-0 win. Going back to the depth, I think if we do get into a position where there are 10 men behind the ball and we are struggling to break them down 60 to 70 minute mark, we will bring on players who are going to probably bring a little bit different of a dynamic. But I have a feeling Leeds are going to be chasing the majority of this game, so it should be pretty open and flowing, which allows us to just absolutely dominate. I'm saying 2-0 win, but I would not be surprised if this ended up being 5 or 6. And I think our new striker gets a brace.
I think this is a perfect match for Gyökeres to give us a look at what we can expect long term. I think anytime you're bringing in a primary position player like that into a new team, it takes a little time for everyone to figure out where he fits into spaces, where he likes the ball, just the runs he's going to make. There's always that bedding in period. And we saw match week 1 at Old Trafford. He was really a non-factor. He didn't hear his name much at all on the broadcast. This seems more like the match where we're going to get a preview of what we can expect from him long term. And I'm with you. I expect him to have a very impactful game. I would expect him to get at least 1 goal. And it'll be the game that people come away saying, that's the striker that we've been wanting. That's the guy we paid the big money for, because that's the type of performances he's going to give us. So it's early in the season. It's not a super high pressure game yet for him, but it does feel like one that's just going to suit him very well to have a little bit of a breakout and sort of ease the tension around a new striker waiting on his first league goal.
Yeah, I wasn't like overly impressed with him at United. I think for me, there were moments within the match where he received the ball and then he fucked up with it, him alone, right? And you can just tell that's like rust. It's nervousness. He's probably trying to do too much. And there's just that, just needs to slow down and he'll find his way into the match. But everyone would always laugh oh, he was only good at Sporting because it's a shit league. Well, no, he was good in the Champions League as well. He caused us a lot of trouble, even though we won. There were moments where, he put Saliba on watch. So in my opinion, Leeds is probably a team good enough to play in that, Portuguese league. So yeah, I think this is going to be really great for him, and the support's going to be amazing. And like I said, if Eze comes out before the match wearing that number 10 shirt, huge.
Place is going to go crazy. And I did think it's funny. I saw, I don't remember, one of the stat groups that posted the Portuguese league is most equivalent to the English Championship, right? Second tier. So people were kind of clowning on Gyökeres because it's a second, his results are in a second tier league. And my immediate response was, if there was a striker in the Championship that bagged 40 or 50 goals each of the last 2 seasons and we signed him, you would be ecstatic for that.
Yeah, you would.
I understand it's not the Premier League, it's not La Liga, but even if you're comparing it to the Championship, the results are incredible. It's hard to argue with the numbers, even if it isn't a top league, which we all agree it's not. But you could cut his production in half and he'd be in Golden Boot contention in the Premier League with those type of numbers. So it's one of those things. People just want to find a reason to hate it, which that's what fans do to the rivals, and I understand that, but it's a little crazy to be that far out over your skis to say the league's not good, so there's no chance he's going to succeed in the Prem. That's just kind of crazy.
Right. Are you panic stations if we lose?
It would be a yes. I mean, I don't panic early in the season because there's so much that can happen. A 3-point lead doesn't win it for you. It also doesn't necessarily lose it for you. But when you've got teams like Liverpool and City that are so good at the top, and the amount of points it takes to win the league every year just seems like it constantly increases, it's tough to give those away early in the year, especially when we have a lot of new signings, but in a lot of ways, we could put out a team that basically mostly played together last year. I think City and Liverpool have added a lot of players that have to play, that are starting players. So it may take them a little more time just to figure each other out, which is why when I saw the schedule, I wasn't super upset about playing away to Anfield in match week 3 with the new players. They've got 2 new fullbacks. I would rather play them now than 3 months from now when they really hit their stride, which, I mean, they look like they were pretty well in stride week 1, but I'd rather play them early than late just for that reason alone. So I'm not mad at it. We still got to play them away at their place at some point. Match week 3, I'm not mad at. We can put out a team that's much more familiar with each other than their squad's going to be potentially. So I'll take that. But yeah, a loss to Leeds before that game would be pretty ugly when you look at it in that sense, that you come away with nothing home from Leeds, which is almost inexcusable when you're fighting for a championship.
Right.
To then have to follow that up by going to Anfield would be potentially a really rough start to the year in terms of points.
Well, and what's great for us is we're going to unveil more than likely our new number 10 heading into that Liverpool match, and he's going to probably start. Arsenal are unbeaten in their last 42 Premier League home games against promoted sides, 37 wins, 5 draws. Last time we lost was to Newcastle in November of 2010.
Wow.
That's pretty damn impressive.
I mean, it's as close to flawless as you could ever get. So I think that right there tells you what a loss to Leeds would look like on the weekend. That would be pretty ugly. So it's good reason for us to be confident, if we weren't already, is that record is pretty phenomenal. If you can go a decade and a half not losing to a newly promoted side at home, we'll take it all day.
Yeah. If we win tomorrow, we tie the record with Chelsea at 43 from their 0-1 to 15. So pretty exciting. Anything else you want to add about the match?
No, I mean, the primary thing that I thought going in was what we already talked about. I think it's a really good match for Gyökeres to give us a glimpse of what we're going to get from him. And then also, if it is one that we get some early goals and are in control of, I think we might start to see a little more rotation. This is one where if we're up 2-0 at 60 minutes, I wouldn't mind seeing Saka get a little break headed into next weekend. Similarly with Odegaard. Now that we have the depth, that you don't have such a tremendous drop-off, we have a lot of flexibility in matches to make those changes and feel confident and comfortable making those changes where we probably wouldn't have a year or two ago.
No, I completely agree. I think about it. I'm like, okay, so your lineup is probably Raya in goal, Timber on the right, but even Arteta said they need to manage his minutes. Saliba, Gabriel, Calafiori. Then we go the midfield trio: Odegaard, Zubimendi, Rice, and then really, I think the front three remain the same as well, right? I don't see us changing anything. Maybe Martinelli drops for Trossard. But I agree with you. If we get a comfortable lead early, that's when I want to start seeing us giving Saka a rest. I think Norgard's still a week away from being able to play, but rotating out. And for me, this is a nice opportunity for us to maybe put Max on the bench. And again, if we end up 3-0, 4-0 in the 70th minute, give Odegaard a break as well. Pull him out and let really give this opportunity to rotate. Let us see the depth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we paid all this money to have a squad that's a really good 18 players every weekend. We need to utilize that. And it's not just, we want to have a better team when we're playing these lower level competitions or the Carabao Cup or whatever. you want to be able to substitute and not have the significant drop off that we saw the last couple of years. Now, last year, a lot of that is injury related, which you can't necessarily plan for, but you saw how detrimental it is to not have quality depth and to have the level of the team drop significantly when you're forced to substitute, which we shouldn't see this year. We should see a pretty strong team even when we do substitute. And yeah, I think I'm with you. I don't think we're going to see any changes in the front line. I think Martinelli will probably still start. It's interesting. I think a lot of people would have liked to see Madueke maybe get a chance over there, but Martinelli healthy. We just re-signed Trossard. I think those are going to be the two we see on the left tomorrow, with Eze coming in to usurp them completely at Anfield. I expect him to start on the left side at Anfield game 1.
Yeah, I completely agree. Well, our first pod back. Hopefully we continue to do pods. I think it'd be kind of fun. Yeah, I guess we'll see what happens, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're back after match week 1. We'll have to get in a rhythm, get with the boys, and make it a regular thing again. It's always good to catch up, always good to talk Arsenal, especially right now because we're on the verge of a pretty exciting season, or what should be a pretty exciting season with at least one trophy in front of mind.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Arsenal fans, thanks for tuning back in. Jared and I are going to promise you now daily content. Jared, always pleasure. So we'll be completely transparent with you. Last time Mike set this up, he did all this WWE bullshit. So we don't know what's going to happen when we hit the stop recording button, because there could be an outro. There could be noises. We don't know what's coming. So if you stop it, Jared, and there's just some weird shit after, slide into Mike's DMs and let him know you enjoyed it.
That's the price we pay for being associated with Mike. But yeah, we'll leave it there. Andy, always a pleasure. I look forward to doing it much more often the rest of this season.
Yeah, same. See ya, buddy.